Because if we have a huge argument at the doorstep, right, about all this stuff, I'm not going to get in my car and take a hammer and beat the hell out of the inside of my car. But they can easily take a hammer and beat the hell out of the inside of my house because they're in it, and I can't do anything about that. There's a legal process. I don't know if the terminology is the same here, but the process is the same. In Arizona, it's called forcible detainer, and you hire an attorney to do it. It's about $500, and it takes about 2.5 weeks. And I know there's a similar one here, and I don't know if it's forcible detainer, or if it's the verbiage is a little bit different, and it's not that important. We can get you that information. But there's 2 attorneys in town. There's many that do it, but there's 2 attorneys in town. They're big, and they do it for everybody. So they get somebody at the courthouse steps on a daily basis, and they just send files in because they're always doing evictions for apartment complexes and everything else, and we just put ours in with everybody else. I like to do them myself because my pitch is this, and I buy homes that are occupied. Because some of the question is, well, I'm just going to forget the ones that are occupied. I'm going to buy the ones that are vacant. And that's a strategy, and I'm not saying don't do that because I'll buy all the vacant ones I can too. But an occupied one has never been a reason for me not to buy. I knock on the door, and the first thing I do is I make sure we acknowledge that I'm speaking to the right person. Okay? Are you Mr. Smith? Or are you Mrs. Smith? And I know who the owner is because of tax records. I go up knowing who that is. So I go up and I make sure, number one, and I do it all in the form of the question, are you Mr. So-and-so? And I'm going to get a yes or a no, correct? And a lot of times they'll identify, and so I'll know who it is. And then I'll say, did you know that the house went for auction today? And I'm going to get a yes or a no, correct? And 80% of the time, I get a no. And the no doesn't bother me. The no doesn't affect my ego as a human being, right? I don't take the no as a lie because it doesn't bother me. I know the no is coming, but I have to ask the question because I'm trying to engage. Sales 101 says you ask in the form of a question. Otherwise, if I make statements, we stand there and look at each other because there's nothing to say, there's nothing to say next, right? It's who's going to say something. So I do, who are you, and identify that. Then I do, were you aware that it went to auction? I'll get a no, and I'll say, I understand. I represent the company who bought it at auction today. What are your plans for moving out? 3 questions, right? Are you, did you, and when are you? Okay, so now I'm engaging in questions. At the entire time, and I'm looking and I'm evaluating. Are they packing? Or have they even thought of packing? Because in 2 seconds, I know if they've even thought of packing. If the house is the way everybody else's house looks, they haven't even thought about it. So here's one of the things. So we're engaging in conversation. I've had a few people come out at me aggressive, right? It's always a guy. It's always a man, okay? Because we have egos. Everybody has an ego. But men have egos, and they say, you're wrong and I am right. So they come out and they go, hey, my attorney, blah, 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 blah. And I'll say, hey, listen, I'm sure that's true. And if it is true, all I need is whatever document you have showing that your attorney really got this stopped, then you'll never see me again. If you can give me a copy, you'll never see me again, and I'm glad you got to keep your home. Right? Because I can change the wording, and we can be on the ground fighting in 2 seconds, because that's how men are, right? It's whatever. Okay? But it doesn't solve the problem I got. I need this house because I got money in it. I have money in it at the moment I'm standing there talking, and I'm trying to protect the asset. So, and that's my whole thing. And that's happened 3 times. And all 3 times, I got an apology from them going, my attorney, they use a different word, my attorney screwed this up for me. Okay? And they go, I'm sorry. And it is your house. And so now what can we work out? Okay? Because I'm there. So outside of that, okay, and that's why I say the eviction isn't for everybody. Then I go into, real quick, so outside of that, the aggressive thing, right? So it's normal, semi-normal conversation. That's a never a normal conversation. And I'm always very respectful. If they have children, teenagers around, I shield the conversation as much as I can to not offend and go through that. I have a guy who I bought his house. He walked me right to the end of the street and goes, my family doesn't know. He goes, I was supposed to solve this. My wife is going to kill me, and my kids are teen. I mean, my heart went out to this guy to a degree because the house is still my asset. I need them to vacate it, and I need to go in and the house was beautiful. It was immaculate. It was like a 1950s build, but it was just incredible. I did very well on it. I felt bad for him because he had to tell his wife that weekend. It was a Friday, and he was shook. He did not know how to tell his family. They lived in the house for 22 years. His children were babies, or even they were born in that house, right? And they grew up. So it's an interesting thing. Now, coming back around to tell you the short side of this. I had a business partner back in like 2000. We did, a bunch of flips together, and he said, Rick, his name was Rick too. They called us the two Ricks. And he's a really good guy, good friend still today, but here's the difference between the two of us. He was very gracious. Like, Rick, you always do the evictions. Let me go out. I'll do the eviction. I'm like, okay, Rick, but here's the deal. Follow this, and it's what I just shared with you, okay? Now, Rick is still a great guy, but he's wound really tight. I mean, this guy is wound really tight. Just naturally, it's at his core, he's wound tight. So when he gets to the door, he has it in his head intellectually, right? What he has to ask and what this process is, because it eliminates the hassle. Well, he knocks on the door and goes to the first question, gets past the who are you, then he goes to the were you aware, and they said no. He took it personally, and he said, yeah, you did. You knew it went to auction. Because his ego and his whole psyche, his core says, we will confront. And if you're lying to me, I will call you on a lie, and I'm going to get the truth, right? Because I'm going to win, and I'm going to be right, right? There's no right. It doesn't exist. Being right does not exist in an eviction, right? You can say being right does exist, but in an eviction, being right does not exist, and it does not win for you. And so how I know about forcible detainer is my buddy Rick, because they told him, get off my lawn. Like, I had a phone call, like, from the homeowner going, if this guy shows up again, and I won't fill in the rest of the blank, but you can imagine what they said. They're like, who is this guy? Get him off my lawn, and, forget you guys. And so then I have to hire an attorney to do the forcible detainer and go through the process. In my normal scope, I offer the $500 I would give to an attorney. Right, that's my buddy, a good guy, but I just want to create the distinction that it's not everybody who can do that. He doesn't get it, and he has to jostle, right? He also, when we come up to Vegas and we play craps, he always ends up in an argument with this stick guy for some reason. I'm like, we're just playing, Have a beer and relax is what we're doing here. He's a good guy. Do you get that it's not for everybody? If you find yourself being a little closer to one Rick versus the other, take that information and either hire an attorney or do it yourself on a call. But be careful out there when you're knocking on the doors, because you just don't know what's behind door number one. I always offer $500 in exchange cash for keys in 5 days. There is no time frame, at least in Arizona. I don't know the detail of Nevada, but it's their tenant in suffering. And so, whatever, if they leave in a day, they leave today, they leave in 5 days. If they stick it out and try to stay a month, that's something you got to deal with. I offer the $500 cash for keys if they could be out in 5 days. But I ask it in a different form. I say, the company I'm representing, right? It's my LLC, and I represent my LLC, so I use that verbiage, right? Because it's hard to punch an LLC in the face, but they can easily punch me in the face if they think I'm the guy throwing them out of their house, okay? So I say, the company I represent has authorized me to give you the $500 in exchange for cash for keys instead of the attorney and then go through that ugly process. Would $500 help you out? Again, always engaging, sales 101, right? People relationship 101, trying to get information out. And for most people in that situation, $500 is a lot. Here's the other thing I do, and I'm going to end with this. The other thing I do is I say, listen, I know how difficult it is to move. Has anybody moved recently? Like, where does all that stuff come from? It's ridiculous. Like a closet fills a semi. I mean, it's just, like, where does it all come from? So what I tell them is, listen, I know how difficult it is to move, especially on short notice, because in their mind, in this conversation, there's another conversation going, and it's the, what do I do, and how am I going to tell, and I got to borrow somebody's truck, and I got to take stuff to the dump. I just say, hey, listen, the company's also authorized me to let you leave anything you want. Take whatever you're taking, leave the rest. When I come in for keys, whatever's here, we're just going to dispose of. We'll either donate or dispose. And literally, I'm not kidding, almost 100% of the time, you can literally see their shoulders drop and go, really? Like, it solves so many problems and so many things. Because here's the thing. If I can get them out of the house 1 day sooner because they didn't have to do a dump run, I win, right? Because I can get a couple of guys, a dumpster, throw the stuff away. And most of the guys who work for me want that stuff anyway. I don't, personally, but they want it. I mean, they're silverware and couches and whatever. It's like, you guys take it. I don't want it. I don't care. As long as it's out of there and we can start doing carpet and tile and the stuff we normally do and get it on the market as quick as possible. Does that make sense on evictions? I know I can't spend a lot of time, but evictions you have to be careful of, and I'll just leave it at that.